Hello and welcome to Health Matters on Channels Television. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. Refractive errors are very common eye disorders. They happen when images are not properly focused and so vision is unclear. Sometimes it's so severe as to cause visual impairment. The World Health Organization estimates that 153 million people over the age of 5 worldwide live with visual impairment due to uncorrected refractive errors, and approximately 90% of them can be found in low-income areas. Uncorrected refractive errors are the major cause of moderate to severe visual impairment. Our guest on the show today is Dr. John Samsedi. He's the Vice Chairman of the Nigerian Optometric Association, Lagos chapter, and the Director of Ocuville Eye Center in Lagos. You're welcome to the show, Dr. Samsedi.
Thank you very much for having me.
All this stuff about uncorrected refractive errors and those big numbers of people, does it mean that if refractive errors were corrected, we won't have all those people with visual impairment?
The numbers will reduce drastically. There are other causes for visual impairments, but of course, like you mentioned from the statistics, a significant number falls within the sphere of uncorrected refractive errors, which means if they didn't exist, that number will be taken care of. If they are corrected or are attempted to be corrected, that number will reduce drastically.
Okay, now the last time you were here, we spoke about short-sightedness, that's myopia. We spoke about
hyperopia,
far-sightedness, a bit of astigmatism. What are some other refractive errors that we haven't touched?
We touched a bit of astigmatism. Then we really couldn't touch on presbyopia.
Okay, so we'll go into that. And what else?
Yeah. Okay. Aside refractive errors, there are other conditions that may be associated directly or indirectly with refractive errors. Things like amblyopia, okay, where there's deprivation of messages to the brain, which makes the brain shut down on interpretation of messages from that particular eye or both eyes. I will break it down.
We will go to that.
Okay.
And strabismus.
Then you have strabismus, which has to do with, the eyes turning out, in, up, or down. Okay, I'm trying not to use very technical terms now because.
But before we go into all that, let me just ask you one question, a curious question about short-sightedness. There's something they call increasing or progressive short-sightedness, where somebody says, "Oh, I'm wearing a -2." Next thing, it's a -4. The next thing, it's a -6. Before you know what's happened, it's a -12. What do they do with that kind of error? Now,
there are reasons why you could have progressive seeming myopia or short-sightedness. Now, there's what we call degenerative myopia. That is, it's progressively degenerating, okay?
Which means it keeps increasing?
It keeps increasing. Now, that may be due to most likely a disease condition associated with the myopia. Now, at that time, like we'll always advise, you need to be in touch or have an eye healthcare provider with you who will monitor it and must have been able to find out what the problem is. In such cases, most times you have to be co-managed with both an optometrist and an ophthalmologist so that they will deal with the disease aspect while the optometrist will now handle the vision aspect. Now, you also have cases where we've found situations where you see people come in at the first time and they tell you, "Oh, I was given a -2, like you said, or -1, and after coming later, it's now a -3. Now, there are a lot of theories that surround it, but basically, most times, for first-time wearers, eye doctors are very careful not to just give you your full prescription initially, because lavishing the full prescription on the person for the first time may make the person begin to see the world differently.
So, in other words, maybe it's a -3, but they feel it's too heavy for the person to carry.
Initially, you step it down, like what you taper the dose. So you give the person what the person can handle at that particular time. Eventually, maybe on a revisit, the doctor now sees, or the person now comes and says, I see, but I don't see farther than a particular distance. I don't see farther than a particular area. So the doctor now feels, okay.
So in this case, it's not progressive.
It's not necessarily
progressive.
Something was
kept used to it.
Yes. In that case, something was kept in the reserve for this person, saying, get used to this thing, because most times, especially when it's a mixed case, especially with people that come with what we call myopic astigmatism.
Okay, so they can be they can happen together.
Yes, you could have mixed cases, you could have what we call antimetropia, where one eye will be a myopic eye, and the other eye will be a hyperopic.
One is short-sighted, one is far-sighted.
Yes, you could have it both ways, because no case is the same. Every person presents with very, very unique case. Like there are some patients who come in to the clinic and their complaints are heaven and earth. Everything wants to fall down. By the time you check, it's just something minor. His threshold for pain or dealing with that particular issue is very, very low. Meanwhile, some people are having real issues, serious refractive errors or diseases, and they just go around as if nothing is happening. But by the time you check, you have to now start, counseling this patient, letting this patient know that what you are going through is really, really serious, and you need to do something about it.
But going back to the increasing short sight, though, when the ophthalmologist and the optometrist come together to manage this patient, is it possible to halt?
Now, it varies, okay? Now, you want to know why. What is the source of this progressive myopia, okay? You do not leave it like that, you must treat. So if there are associated conditions, there may be a glaucoma or other neurological problems, they come in, whatever needs to be prescribed in terms of drugs or surgeries, you do that. Okay. In cases, managing with just glasses or contact lenses may not even be enough. We've had cases where you have to refer, where they have to do a LASIK, okay, where it's available, because then you have to now be very, very, very careful, because you're not talking of very, very, very high minuses now, where people will, traditionally or locally call it Coca-Cola bottle prescription.
So they use a laser to treat that.
Use a laser to treat that sometimes, okay? And like I said, there are many sides to it, so it depends on which individual, why. It could be, for instance, a diabetes causing that particular condition.
Okay.
So, for instance,
so
somebody
now the diabetes is now the major causative factor, and if that's handled.
Just 3 weeks ago, someone presented in the clinic, and he says, just 2 days ago I was fine, and now I can see clearly. Someone who is not trained, or maybe this roadside, we just begin to put minus lenses. But on examination and observation, we find out that probably something might be wrong systemically. And we say, go see your doctor, have tests. And he had to be admitted immediately because his sugar level had skyrocketed. And he was so grateful coming to the clinic. Thank you, you saved my life. Because the medical personnel said, look, it was a crisis situation. So in that case, you could have seen...
Could he have gone blind?
He could have died. He would have lost his life.
That's even worse.
Yes. It's much... Because now you're talking about raised, he could go into a coma. A lot of things can rise up. I mean, when you know about managing, people that have increasingly, steadily increasing level of their sugar in the body. So that's why it's a holistic approach. We adopt a holistic approach.
You're already talking about the ophthalmologist, the optometrist.
Now even the medical doctor.
Even the medical doctor, the person in charge of internal medicine now, dealing with diabetes.
Yeah. So that's why I mentioned every case has to be handled as it comes. When this person comes, I don't assume. I do everything that is necessary to be able to know what is the problem with this person. Why is it? Thank God for technology. Technology has made everything so easy now. You have a lot of things out there that could make work easier for the doctor. You have
but you've spoken about long sight, short sight, astigmatism. Some people can't imagine what else. What's this presbyopia?
Okay. I'm trying to explain, to people what refractive conditions could be. We try to break it down. Now, presbyopia, I could call it an age-related condition.
Okay.
It is rare to find it in younger chaps. Usually, and it varies from region.
So you're safe up to the age of what?
It's a range, 38 to 40. Now, we could get it earlier. Sometimes 35, sometimes 30. I've seen cases of 30. Now, firstly, you want to know why he's starting early. So you say you're aging too fast, or something like that.
So what are the typical signs of someone with
typical
presbyopia?
Signs are, whenever I hold my book closely, this is usually a complaint. I come into the clinic.
Those people who read like
now
this.
you have to push it backwards, and I need a lot of illumination before I can see things clearly. So I try to explain it this way. If you had someone who is 40 years old and maybe the daughter who or a son who is maybe 15 years old, if you put them on a racetrack, there is a 90 or 95% possibility that the younger person will beat the other person in track. So the lens is gradually aging. It's acquiring deposits that is now making the process we call accommodation, which is responsible for your ability to be able to read print at close range and then raise up your head and see things at distance without stress. It happens in split seconds. That's the wonders of nature. So the ability for you to be able to change focus without having strain with both eyes working together, that's what we call accommodation. Now, when someone is not able to do that, you see things, now what they tell you, they see things clearly at far, but when they now have to move it up front, it becomes a problem. So they start pushing it backwards. They need very bright. In fact, they'll tell you I have to use torchlight to read when it's getting dark. Now, at that point, now there could be other factors alongside presbyopia, because sometimes it's not a standalone, but most times it's standalone. Okay, so we'll not talk about getting into statistics now, knowing which could be associated with things like cataract and other diseases. But basically, standalone presbyopia is, I will call it old age of the eye.
Okay, and lenses can handle this?
Definitely so. Now, we have to be careful here because, you know, people come in and they'll tell you, I've been taking yeast, I've been taking Vicin, I've been taking chloramphenicol to try and solve this problem because, you know, we like quick fixes, okay? People really don't like hearing the truth. It is not something that drugs can correct. It varies. Like I was trying to talk about the regional statistics in terms of in the blacks here,
by
in the
the
tropics.
way,
Yeah.
those statistics I read out did not include any presbyopia.
Most likely.
Presbyopia was not included in that study.
Yes.
So we are talking about much larger figures now.
Much
if
larger.
we were to include the presbyopia.
Presbyopia, yeah. No, so we noticed that in this part of the world, the tropics, they start early, probably because of our lifestyle exposure to UV burns and things like this. So the lens ages faster. But in Asian countries, we notice that when you have to see an Asian patient, European patient, it increases. So for Asians, you see from 50 to 55.
But Asians have smog. A lot of smog in their countries. Doesn't that count for something?
Well, that may now begin to affect other aspects of their health. But when it comes to presbyopia, okay, what we notice is, for instance, European statistics 45 to 50, Asian statistics, like I said, 50 to 55. Here, 38 to 42.
Wow.
38 to 42. So people, at the time they come in, it's already late because they're telling you, what can I do to prevent it? You can only support the person. You can only make the person read with less stress.
Is there a prevention though?
Earlier on,
yes,
healthy lifestyle.
Before it sets
you can delay it. You can delay it. Okay. But you cannot completely remove the fact that you will get old one day. Because I tell people, if you can prevent wrinkles from coming on your body, then maybe you can prevent yourself from reading with reading glasses.
So it's just a natural
It's a natural phenomenon.
But you can slow it down.
You can slow it down. You can manage it. Okay. Healthy lifestyle.
So tell us about this amblyopia that you were saying, messages to the brain. What's that about?
Okay. Amblyopia is let me not say as the name suggests, that's for the technical people now, but basically, now you have both eyes, they're supposed to be working together to see images clearly.
Is this little child amblyopic?
Now, we cannot determine if the child is amblyopic, but this child has what we call strabismus.
Okay, let's come back to that. We really have to take a break before we take off with ourselves here.
No problem.
Please stay with us. We are coming back. You don't want to miss amblyopia.